To get started, I'd like to say thank you to this video's sponsor, Brilliant. More about them later on. The oil industry throughout its history has been dangerous and dirty. To exploit these resources, complex and expensive methods of extraction are used. Retrofitting of equipment incorrectly can result in safety compromises, and this would result in death and destruction with a bill of nearly £1.7 billion. If you like what we do here at Plainly Difficult, consider helping the channel grow by liking, commenting and subscribing. Let's get started. It's been a while since we have covered an event back in Blighty, but today we are looking at a disaster which left an oil rig decimated and 167 dead. The event would knock a 10% dent in North Sea oil production and highlight the dangers of the UK oil industry. I'm going to rate this incident here on the Plainly Difficult disaster scale. Piper Alpha was an oil platform that had been constructed on the Piper oil field. The field was around 110 miles off the coast of Scotland and covers an area of 15 miles squared. A licence to exploit the area was issued to Occidental in 1972. After extensive surveys, oil was discovered in January 1973. This newly discovered source of oil was named Piper, and in order to extract it, a platform was needed to be constructed. The platform, named Piper Alpha, was completed in 1976 after 3 years of construction. The rig sat upon 474 feet of water and was made up of 4 main modules, which were prefabricated on land before final assembly on site. The layout of the platform meant that the dangerous processing areas were as far away as possible from the personnel areas. Sat atop these modules were further sections for living quarters and other production areas. In 1976, the oil flow started, eventually building up to around 300,000 barrels of oil per day. Initially only oil was used, with the gas also extracted being burnt off by the platform's flare. The platform provided facilities to drill wells and extract the oil, as well as process the fluids. To get the oil from beneath the ocean floor, a combination of oil, gas and saltwater brine is pumped to the platform. Then, the gas and water are separated from the oil in production separators. Gas is separated off and cooled to remove the condensate liquid. Condensate is pumped back into the oil via 2 pumps named A and B, and a mixture travels to the shore refinery. Any excess gas is burnt off. However, this would change in 1978 when construction works to enable gas transportation to meet UK gas conservation requirements. Due to this, excess gas was then purified and pumped off the rig. In 1974, Occidental started construction on an oil terminal on the Orkney Island flotter. The site received oil from both Piper and Claymore oil fields. This flowed through 30-inch diameter pipes with a distance of 128 miles from Piper Alpha. The gas from Piper Alpha was pumped to MCP-01, a gas compression platform 34 miles away, where it was mixed with gas from the Frigg line and was pumped back to St Fergus. Gas from Tarleton and Claymore fields was pumped via Piper Alpha to the MCP-01. The diameter and length of the pipes meant that the pressure would take significant time to reduce after an emergency stop. Occidental predicted that this could take up to several hours. Remember this for later on. In the early 1980s, the rig was converted to a new method of operation when its gas dehydration unit was changed for a gas conversion module. Part of the retrofitting of the rig meant gas compression occurred next to the control room, compromising the safety concept of keeping the dangerous equipment far away from the crew areas. From 1983, the rig operated in a Phase 2 mode, and this became the de facto operating environment for most of the time. The rig had a total of 6 lifeboats, 13 life rafts, 500 odd life jackets, 31 life buoys, and knotted ropes. This was to help with any emergency evacuation of the maximum crew capacity of 241 persons. However, usually closer to 220 persons were on the platform at any one time. Each lifeboat could hold a maximum of 47 persons, were motorised and had the ability to sail through burning oil. The platform had an automatic firefighting system similar to many other oil rigs, driven by both diesel and electric pumps. The diesel pumps were used to suck in large amounts of seawater for fire suppression. Normally the pumps had an automatic control to start them in case of fire, thus providing a key safety system in the event of a disaster. However, the automatic system could be disabled, needing manual activation from the control room. This mode of operation was regularly used during the summer months, where divers were in the water for up to 12 hours per day for inspection and repair works. During the mid to late 1980s, the platform was undergoing maintenance and upgrade works. As part of this, Occidental had highlighted the need to replace the gas conversion module. These works should have led the platform to being temporarily shut down. However, Occidental took the decision to revert the platform back to working in Phase 1 mode, essentially keeping the oil rig open whilst undertaking complex and demanding maintenance work. The change back to Phase 1 took place in July 1988. During early July, whilst maintenance was undertaken, gas smells were reported by workers on the rig, and on the 5th of July, a temporary evacuation was initiated after a leak from the gas conversion module. This leads us on to the 6th of July 1988. One of the two condensate pumps that were operating, injecting condensate back into the oil, had its pressure safety valve removed for routine maintenance. The removal left an open condensate pipe. This opening was covered by a metal plate flange which was bolted down. During the day, the fire suppression system was also under manual control due to divers in the water. Unfortunately, the day shift was unable to complete the work, and at 6 PM the metal flange stayed in place. However, it was only hand tightened down. The engineer on the day shift completed a form stating that pump A was not fit for service and should not be switched on. When the day shift ended, the form with the information about the out of use pump was not given to the night foreman and was instead left in the control room. As we see often in these types of disasters, improper handover between shifts causes confusion and vital information is not passed along. Unsurprisingly, the form went missing in the busy control room environment, meaning no one was aware of the status of pump A. Now, here's some words about today's sponsor, Brilliant. If, like me, you feel that your brain needs a kickstart from all the inactivity of being cooped up inside the hellscape that has been 2020, then Brilliant could be what you need in order to get your brain back into gear. Brilliant helps you build up problem solving and critical thinking skills running at your pace, your rules. Brilliant helps you keep your brain the sharpest knife in the drawer. This is done through fascinating, smart and stimulating quizzes. Not just that, but as a person who enjoys learning about the technicals of how things work, some of Brilliant's other courses help you learn about new subjects. For example, learning about how solar energy works, or even this course about artificial neural networks and how they learn by detecting patterns in huge amounts of information, which will eventually take over the world and become our AI overlords. I especially enjoyed that one. All of these courses, including this one, are made by experts in their field. If this interests you, and guessing if you're a regular watcher of Plain Difficult, then you probably will be, the first 200 people to subscribe using my URL link, www.brilliant.org/plaindifficult, will get 20% off a yearly subscription. The condensate system has started to cause issues with the build-up of methane clathrate. This flammable ice tripped out pump B. The operators could not restart the failed pump. The control room staff looked around for any information on the status of pump A, but could not find any correct paperwork. The safety valves for pumps A and B were in different locations, and because of this, paperwork for each part was kept separately, leading to further confusion. The missing valve was not noticeable due to the metal disc replacing the safety valve being obscured by machinery and a few metres above eye level. Without any paperwork to say the contrary, pump A was started at 9:55 PM. Gas flowed through the pump and created an overpressure which could not be held back by the hand-tightened panel. Gas could be heard gushing from the opening and alarms were triggered on the platform. However, before anyone could react, the inevitable happened and the fumes ignited. The explosion blew down the firewall to the control room and the emergency stop button was pushed, cutting off oil and gas flow. Due to the original use of the platform, the firewalls were not blast resistant, and because of this, the first explosion had ruptured other pipes, causing further fires. The explosion left the control room severely damaged, and this would mean effective control and fighting of the fire couldn't be initiated as the platform relied on an intact control room. Just after 10 PM, a mayday call was sent out and the control room was abandoned. Standard procedures would be for the crew to make their way to the lifeboats, however the uncontrolled fire stopped this from happening. Many crew members moved to the fireproof accommodation block, beneath the helicopter deck to await further instructions. However, the fire and resulting smoke stopped any helipad usage, and the deadly fumes started to permeate into the accommodation block. Due to the automatic fire suppression system being set to manual mode and the now disabled control room, no way of stopping the flames was available apart from physically going to the diesel pumps to start them manually. Some crew members attempted to do this, however they did not return and the system was not started up. The fire was added to by the platforms of Tartan and Claymore, which carried on pumping oil and gas to Piper, which escaped at the ruptured pipes from the first explosion. The Tartan and Claymore platforms had not received any order from Occidental management to cease pumping, even though the Mayday call had been sent from Piper. At 10:05 p.m, the Mayday call was received and a Hawker Siddeley Nimrod from RAF Kinloss was dispatched to Piper to act as on-scene commander and Rescue 01. RAF Lossiemouth dispatched a Sea King helicopter to assist. At 10:20 p.m, Tartan's gas pipe melted on Piper, releasing around 15 to 30 tons of high-pressure gas every second, intensifying the fire and causing a second explosion. The firefighting and rescue vessel, Transocean Marianas, then called the Pharos, pulled alongside the stricken platform at around 10:30 and attempted to fight the blaze. However, its hoses were too powerful for use near personnel on the rig. 20 minutes later, the riser to the MCP-01 ruptured, exploding, sending huge flames 300 feet into the air. This forced the Pharos to move away from the rig, reducing its rescue efforts. The explosion killed 2 crew and 6 Piper Alpha crew on a fast rescue boat from the standby vessel Sandhaven. Any survivors left aboard Piper Alpha sought refuge in the remains of the accommodation area and the helipad. Many leaped into the sea in a desperate effort to reach safety. The pipeline from Claymore to Piper finally ruptured, further exploding the platform. At 11:50 p.m, the platform's vital structure sections had failed, causing upper regions to collapse in on itself. The fireproofed accommodation block fell into the sea, taking the crew members inside with it. Within almost an hour, all of the structure had slipped beneath the waves. In the light of day, the only thing that was left was a burning Module A. 167 lives were lost, and only 61 of the Piper Alpha's crew survived. The tragic loss of such a large number of people is a result of several failings. However, they can all be traced back to Alpha's history of being retrofitted for gas operations, compromising the safety of the control room. Disaster was inevitable with the first fire and explosion, as anyone with the authority to initiate an evacuation of the platform was killed when the control room was destroyed. The literal fuel on the fire came in the form of Tartan and Claymore, whose operations control crews did not halt the flow of gas and oil to Piper. They believed that they did not have the authority even though they could see Piper on fire in the distance. The remains of Piper burnt on for another 3 weeks until a team led by Red Adair finally extinguished the fire, officially marking the end of the disaster. Later on in 1988, one of the sections that many crew members had sought covering was recovered from the seabed, and 87 bodies were still within. The Honourable Lord Cullen launched an investigation into the disaster in 1988 and would be presented to Parliament in 1990. The report offered 106 recommendations to North Sea oil operations after the investigation, all of which were accepted by the industry. As a result of the inquiry, the Health and Safety Executive took over responsibility for North Sea safety, replacing the UK Department of Energy's obligation, which at the time was operating with a conflict of interest, being in charge of both production and safety. Although the Cullen inquiry found Occidental guilty of poor maintenance and safety procedures, no criminal charges were put to the company. This would ultimately lead to the Offshore Installation Safety Case Regulations of 1992. The disaster was the largest man-made of its time and was one of the worst offshore disasters in terms of lives lost. I'd like to thank Brilliant for sponsoring this video. Sponsors like this really help keep the lights on here at Plainly Difficult HQ. So don't forget, if you'd like to check out Brilliant, use this link www.brilliant.org/plainlydifficult for the first 200 people to get 20% off an annual subscription. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you'd like to help the channel grow, then you can by liking, commenting and subscribing. If you want to help the channel out financially, you can via Patreon, which gets you early access to videos as well as access to votes on future subjects. I also have YouTube membership as well, which gets you early access to videos from 99p per month. If you want to wear my merch, I have a Teespring store, and if you'd like to follow me on Twitter, you can as well. And all that's left to say is thank you for watching.